I love how she's like, "No, I'm fine, thank you." And both Kieran and Castile are looking at her like, "Fuck are you?" Like, that's not Poppy.
I so at the end of chapter 19, she goes, "By the way, I'm not yours. I don't belong to anyone but myself. Nothing changes that." And Castile goes, "What if I just wanted a piece of you, a tiny piece that belonged to me? I think I can think of a few places I would love to have, princess." And
Mhm.
she goes, "I bet you can." And then at a few lines down, it says, "I didn't offer Castile a piece of me as we rode forward, joining the others. There was no reason to because he didn't know what he didn't know was that he already held too many of them." What great writing,
I
Jennifer.
said I said Castile can have whatever part of me that he wants.
That's not surprising. Chapter 20. But he essentially just tells her that she needs to just act like she normally acts, like stab him in the face, punch him in the nose, beat him
Yep.
up, whatever it is. And that's how their engagement will look real to people because her being silent is just not the vibe. Her wanting to punch him often and stabbing him in the face. Like, I just think that that's so funny and so, like, real. I mean, not that I want to stab people in the face,
Mhm.
but like, just being so frustrated and being like bantery. And I love that for them. I
Yeah, I
think
love
that
whenever she
that's
gets
great.
violent, he gets sexual and it just throws her off.
Mm.
She elbows him and then Delano, please don't fight atop the horse. None of us wish to watch Steady trample either of you. And Kieran, speak for yourself. Love
Yeah.
them. But I do love that like when he's trying to get her to be that way, he just tells her like what love is because she only saw what her parents had briefly and she was so young. And he just tells her that like people who are in love enough to marry, n- the ones that people know are together before they even realize it, never consists of just one person, one personality, or even one will. They fight, they argue, they disagree, they make up, they talk, they agree. The one thing they never are is perfect. And I love that, like that reassurance of like you don't have to put on a show. You just have to like understand that it's messy just like anything else. And that's okay. I love that.
And I love that on the in the same vein, they're having this whole long conversation. I love these two lines I love. It says, "This won't be hard, not with the passion between us, and before you try to lie and say there is none, just know that it would provoke me into proving you right." And she's like, "The last thing I needed for him to prove that he was right. There was passion between us, whether it was right or wrong, and I suppose it would be far harder to do this if we couldn't physically bear one another." And then a few lines down, she's just like, "You probably think I'm foolish for not knowing," and he cuts her off and he's like, "I don't think you're foolish. I never have." Well, I take that back. I thought you were pretty foolish when you tried to escape. You've never been in a relationship and you really haven't been around many normal ones, so I understand why you wouldn't be sure how to act, and it's not like this is a normal situation. And then she tries to ask and get context about Shay because Alistair wouldn't tell her anything. And all Cass says is
And
she's
she
gone.
does it without revealing that she knows who she is too.
Yeah.
And I like that she didn't just like bombard him. She was trying to get him to open up on his terms and see what he was willing to give.
And then, like, she could sense his pain, and he told her not to take his pain away.
Mhm.
That he appreciates it,
The pain
like,
is a
she was like
reminder and a warning.
exactly. And then toward the end of the chapter, she's thinking and she goes, "But he would be gone one day when all this was all over and we parted ways. He would be gone from my life. That was what I wanted, what I planned. Then why did I suddenly feel like crying? Mood, girlfriend. Mood."
Mhm.
Oh,
Oh, and
oh no.
then we
Yep.
meet the dead, is it Dead Bone Clan? Is that what they're called?
Dead Bone Clan, where they like to eat and wear people's faces. I thought this was the most disgusting part of this book, and I was just like, I'm so glad there's not a visual of this because I
Mhm.
would vomit.
When she describes when he gets up close and he's literally like wearing this person's face, I'm like, is it like I had a hard time trying to imagine what that looked like. I was like, is it like a ski mask but a person's face, or did they just like glue it? Like, oh, that was
No, I
just
think they just made it work.
gross.
Ugh. Um, then he gets shot a bunch of times.
Homeboy was Swiss cheese by the end of this fight, and
I
he
mean,
was
that's
still
okay.
cracking jokes and sexy as hell.
I love that he's like wounded and she's super concerned and he goes, "Your concern warms the same heart you've so grievously wounded."
Yeah.
She goes, "You're no good dead to me." And I'm like, "Girl, you love him. Shut up."
Hmm. I like how he's getting shots and
Oh.
he's like, this is annoying. And then he tells her, like, don't get shot. That'll be more annoying.
And then she sees Kieran change from into his mortal form from Wolven and he's butt ass naked. And she's like, yeah.
Yeah, she's like thinking something. She's like, you're naked. I am.
He's like, I don't care.
Because he's naked, like super naked. Yeah,
Okay.
she's very hung up on that. And they
And you're wild. Nope. I was gonna talk about
uh,
Delano.
okay.
Delano makes a nice little statement that said, I heard one of them talk about how they wanted to make a cloak out of my fur. My fur should be reserved for something far more luxurious than a cloak. I bet him extra hard for that.
I would too, Delano. I would too.
Yeah, then we get more background into like the Ascended and their fears about Atlantia and all
We learned
this
that
jibber
Pompeii is
jabber.
just basically a graveyard. It's just ruins.
Correct. Um,
In chapter 22.
oh yeah, but between feeding her his blood to heal her, he is so
And getting
wounded
injured.
and getting injured. Homeboy needs some food. You know what I'm saying?
Like
Some
the
I
liquid kind, the
yeah,
red wine of his people.
that was something. That was something. Oh, I really like this quote we highlighted. Anyway, so he feeds with Poppy. Um,
Well, he didn't really feed with Poppy in this one. This one was where he wakes up and no, because it's not this chapter that he feeds.
oh,
Um,
he gets yeah, never
this
mind.
is where
He
he
dream
wakes
state.
up and he gets a little intense with her and it gets sexual, but she kind of like cries out and Kieran comes in thinking like she's in danger, and but they're in a very
Compromising position.
compromising position. And he's like, oh, my bad. But then Castile growls at him and he's like, oh shit, Poppy, you need to run. But Poppy's
Yeah, yeah.
able to get him out of it by calling him
By saying
Hawk.
Hawk. Oh,
Yep.
love that. He's all like, thanks for
I
getting me
love
out of
how
that.
neither of us highlighted anything in that. Like,
We were too busy enjoying the ride. Let's be real.
and then he comes out of
Um,
it. He says, honeydew. Then I'm sorry. And then walks out. And that's, yeah.
yeah, one of the main things that I really liked from this chapter was this quote that you highlighted that says the most beautiful things in all the kingdom often have jagged and uneven lines, scars which intensify the beauty in intricate ways our eyes nor our minds can detect or even begin to understand. The queen had said as she turned the diamond in her hand, light catching on its irregular dips and peaks. Without them, they would just be common and ordinary, like all the other smoothly cut diamonds you can find anywhere you look. Beauty, my sweet child, is often broken and barbed and always unexpected.
Yeah. I hated that the queen said it, but it's such a good line.
It is really just like a great line. That's what I enjoyed from that chapter.
Yeah. And then Kieran and Papia get some time to talk. And
Why does everyone
it's
think I'm going to
time.
stab them when I pick up something that's not blunt? I
You do
love
have a
that.
habit of doing exactly that. And I like how she says
Oh,
it's not my fault that some of you deserve to be stabbed
uh,
repeatedly.
mood.
But yeah, they go down to the water and he kind of explains about
How
kind of
I
lay some truth bombs on her. Like
Yeah, like girl, when you realize you care about him more than you're faking to care about him, like come on. Come on.
he's explaining like he wouldn't be doing this stuff if he cared about you. Like he's more alive with you than he has been since he was captured. Um and like what you highlighted, like would do you think he care about you getting blood when you're not that hurt, you being comfortable, things like that? Like if this was just like some ruse to him. And then he says, and just so you know, the only reason I didn't end your life the second I learned that you stabbed him in the heart is because he cares for you. Is that less vague enough for you, Penelope?
And please note, he is not calling her Poppy.
Nope.
And then she goes, I wanted to, even though I thought he was a royal guard and would basically have to go into hiding with me, I wanted to be with him, to stay with him somehow, because he made me feel like I was alive. I did care for him. I cared for him a lot. And Kieran goes, he was Castile then, just like he's Hawk now. And you know that. You just aren't ready to accept it.
I love that because of how he used the terms. He was Castile then, like when he was Hawk. just like he's Hawk now. Not like, oh, he was Hawk then. Like, no, when he was Hawk, he was still Castile. And now that he's Castile, he's still Hawk. I like how he worded that.
Me too. And she's still wrestling with this and she goes, so caring for him would only lead to heartache. And Kieran goes, it doesn't have to, but even so, sometimes the heartbreak that comes with loving someone is worth it, even if loving that person means eventually saying goodbye to them. He
Yeah.
just coming up with these good lines, let me tell you.
And
Oh,
then you
and then
find out, yeah,
oh yeah, the
he
truth
has some
bomb.
experience with that. And then he kind of tells her, like, he says, I don't think that's the case. I think it's something deeper than that, something intangible, far rarer and stronger than bloodlines and even the gods, something powerful enough that it has ushered in great change in the past. And she's like, ah, shit. And he says, I think you're heartmates. And that's literally where it leads. No information on what that is. Things just, I think you're heartmates. And it's like people who read fantasy know, like, basically what that's alluding to. But it's like, oh shit. Like, he just dropped that.
Yes, he did.
And I put in
Um,
the show notes, I said, heartmates or heartbreaks.
who knows? Stay tuned for more. Oh yeah, so then chapter 4 gets a little awkward. Alistair explains the joining, which is, more or less a threesome with your Wolven. And and it's just a bond that, if you die, I die. If you're a bird, I'm a bird. Standards of bonding.
It feels like
Um,
your dad trying to have the sex talk with you. Like,
but anyway, when a bonded elemental takes on a partner, the bond can be extended to that person. It requires an exchange of blood between the three or the four if the partner is also bonded. And the exchange of blood, well, it is quite it can become quite intimate. And while Castile finds it very amusing that Alistair had that conversation with her. I just want to say.
mm-hmm.
But essentially he says it's not required, but
But with her being
are you
human, it would
prepared?
be almost expected to, like, tie her life to theirs so she lives as long as they do, kind of thing.
Correct. And then going into chapter 25, she learns that Alistair was Malik's last bond. Malik, not the son, not the prince we are trying to rescue. The OG.
Malec, that
Yeah,
old
yeah, yeah.
king who got ostracized, basically.
Yeah.
Alistair was his last bonded because he lived so long. He outlived most of his Wolven, which tells you how old he is, considering that Jasper's one of the oldest and he's been alive like 600 years. Like, tells you how old Malik is.
True. And um wow, you highlighted some things. Oh.
He did.
Then they're talking about her being of a warrior bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
Um and he said, Castile says, forcing a warrior to don a veil of submission was never going to last. And Poppy's like, I don't know about the warrior part. And he's like, I do. And he says, it's your bloodline, it's you. And she goes, I'm still a little annoyed that I'm not of a changeling bloodline and I can't shift forms. And I'm like, girlfriend,
I love how that's
you're
her priority.
like, you're an all, you get your powerful warrior empath situation. And you're
Yeah.
mad you can't change it to a wolf or
Because this
something.
is like their theory. Like, first, oh, you're half Atlantean. Now they think, oh, you're from the empath bloodline, which we learn scared people because some of them were soul eaters. Like, they could feed off of your feelings and basically like suck it out of you and your soul and stuff, which yikes. But
I
yeah.
love that I highlighted this. Um, I highlighted a line. They were talking
Mm-hmm.
about him being captured. And she goes, I was going to say I'm glad you found yourself, because he, got lost in the sauce. And he goes, truly, Poppy, are you really? She goes, yeah, I guess I am. You may have come back as an asshole, but that's better than being lost in your own mind. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, better an asshole than mentally unstable, or you can be both, I guess. But yeah.
And then she finally comes to terms. And she says, I feel your hunger, Castile, and I don't need to do this. I stopped doing things I didn't want to do the moment I took off the damn veil. I want to help you because as stupid as this may make me, and God only knows why I care about you. So yeah, I don't want to have my throat ripped open, and I also don't want to know that you're suffering for no reason. So she's finally coming to terms with everything, and she's just like, let me feed you, Daddy.
Yeah, she agrees to it, but he has the condition. that someone has to be there because he doesn't want to accidentally take too much. And
So no one's shocked.
who's our worthy person to help with this but Kieran?
Shocker.
And so when he like this is the position they're in, right? Kieran's standing behind her, keeping track of her pulse. I think it's at the neck, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And Castile's in front of her, so it's really a poppy sandwich between these two hunk of men. Like,
Oh yeah. She's pressed back against Kieran with unexpected strength. The woven hit the wall behind us with a grunt as Castile trapped us both. Oh god. Anyway.
Yep. And then as it continues, because we know the effects of the blood at this point, like how it makes you feel, she says, I didn't know exactly when I lost the fight against my body. I didn't know when I'd stopped thinking about the fact that it wasn't just Castile's body that touched mine. It wasn't his chest that my head fell back against.
I love them.
I was just like, yes, please.
I love them so much.
And I put Kieran. What a great situation you found yourself in.
Honestly, though. And then, then he says thank you. Yeah, he says thank you, and
make sure they're both okay.
You Gucci? I'm Gucci. We're all Gucci. Cool. And then we move into.
And Castile thinks Poppy in his own way. I mean, yep. Anyways.
Yes. He does indeed do that. Then they continue on pretending. I'm tired of this pretending, by the way. Colton feels the staticky charge too.
Yep.
Yes. I'm trying to figure out all these people who are feeling the static charge.
I tried to highlight all of it when I came across it.
But anyway.
But he feels it twice.
Yeah, this static situation.
And that's like some of it I'm like, I don't understand.
Like, why two? Like, it was fine.
Oh, then a big moment. Continue.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just like, they're doing that, and like he's introducing him to people, and he's like, I'm gonna teach you how to ride your own horse, and like another way of giving her her own independence, something that won't be a crutch to her later on. But when they're leaving, she says, I started pretending again, but this time he was Castile and I was Poppy, and he truly was my prince. And that's a big shift in her mindset that like it's getting closer to real. Like it's not as pretendy as it was before. Pretendy is a word now. Pretendy.
Yeah, listen.
And then Kieran.
I love this whole dynamic and I love the progression of their relationship. And then I really also enjoy like throughout this whole thing, he's like, there's somebody I want you to meet. Like he's including her despite the situation they're in. And this is where we meet our new BFF.
Little Netta.
Little Netta. Kieran's sister. Their banter is great. Their bonding. She's like, I like her. She a badass.
And they're like, of course you do.
Yeah, and she feels the static charge.
Yep.
And
your little snacky snack.
Huh? You're a snacky
like snack. They go inside, they have like a snack. We learned that apparently Kieran can make candied fruit and drinks and stuff.
Yeah, and then Kieran's like, don't be polite, it weirds me out.
I kind of just chit-chatting.
Oh yeah, then there was the accident with Beckett. And we learn about the glow in the heels. Okay, we went two different directions with that. It says the tingling sensation of my palms ramped up as if static danced over my skin and my hands heated. The woven twitched, whimpering quietly as a muted glow appeared between my fingers, peeking through the strands of fur before washing over my hands. And then I highlighted at the end of the chapter, Poppy, you're glowing, not just your hands, you. So she saves Beckett, and then she becomes this glowing ray of radiance.
I'm curious, how do you imagine it? Do you imagine like her skin, like under her skin is glowing, or that like she has like the aura? around her.
It's getting
Oh, okay. So
Ed
the skin.
Edward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I would think, but the aura sounds better, but let's be real, it's
Yeah.
probably Edward. You know what
Because
I'm
she
saying?
says the glow appeared between her fingers. So that's why I thought of like the aura of it all. But I don't know. Gotta wait for some fan art of that to see what we like more.
Yeah.
So we
So
find
this,
out.
yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna say she didn't just take away his pain. She actually like straight up
Fully
healed
healed.
his legs that would have been
Which,
broken.
correct. And I think he would have lost his legs.
Yeah, Castiel says
Pretty
he would have
sure.
lost his legs, Poppy. You prevented that. And she says, then why do you sound so angry with me? He says, I'm not. And she's like, oh, are you hungry? And he said, not for blood.
He's freaking dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I'm not reading that one, but if you want to read that one, you
Nope.
can.
Nope. I mean, if we want it read out loud.
Anyway, so he says thank you, and they discuss how that Castile planned for them to get married before she met the parents, kind of
Mm-hmm.
vibe. Which
Alistair does not like
honestly,
that.
yeah, Alistair don't like a lot, so he'll be alright. So this is where we're introduced to Jasper, who is the quote unquote head of the Wolven, and then
Mm-hmm.
we later learn that that is Kieran's father. Love Jasper.
One second.
Lo-
Before we meet Jasper, actually, they're in the cavern scene. I like this moment because, they're stripping down, getting into this little like pool thing. And she sees him like all his like scars and his brand. And she's like, I want to like, I wish they could feel the pain you do. And he's like, even your queen, like who you feel so tenderly for. And she was like, I don't think I'll ever be able to reconcile the queen you know and the one who cared for me, but yes, even her.
Mm.
And it's like that's a big point for her because for a long time she was like, because she wouldn't do this. I have a hard time believing it. And now she's like, you know what? I may have different memories of her, but yeah, I'm pissed at her too. Like I would kill her for this. And of course
Yeah,
he's turned on by that.
to no one's surprise.
And then she says, I don't want to pretend. I'm Poppy, you're Castile. This is real. And then we meet Jasper. It's great. I'm not gonna read the highlight from page 380 either.
So what I really liked about her realization before she's just like, I'm done pretending, like this is stupid, like I'm in love with this man. She's like, I wanted to believe we were heartmates in spite of everything that made that seem impossible. And it really much illustrates her struggles internally.
Yeah.
But I love that.
I was conflicted that Nyktos himself could arrive and Castile wouldn't look away from me.
Honestly,
Oh,
I what a
so
what,
it's a if you know, you know kind of thing. And we know more annoying.
yeah, more annoying stuff. I was like, what is this? Yeah, I'm tired of these people not accepting her. I mean, I get it, but like, damn. Let me go for
Where
it.
Alistair is talking to them and he's like, he's having this whole like conversation with Poppy, being like, oh, you can't tell him this, and this. And it's like, like what we were talking about, it felt weird. And while they're talking, he kind of drops a bomb about like, uh, he was expected to marry upon his return. And he was like, wait, he didn't tell you that idiotic boy? And he's like, why do I feel like I'm that idiotic boy you speak of? And Alistair suddenly starts to back out, like, oh, this isn't the time. And they're both like, no, what were you going to say? And he's like, you didn't tell her that you were already promised to another.
Oh yeah, then it causes a whole nother rift that they obviously work
Mm-hmm.
through because Alistair's a dummy. I'm
And
tired of
that's
him.
one thing that I actually love about their relationship that you don't see in a lot of books like this. Like
Communication?
yeah, I love Fourth Wing and like Iron Flame, but there's a lot of like jealousy and bickering and not believing each other. Whereas in this, like yeah, she feels her feelings, she gets upset, but then he explains what's going on and gives her background and she believes him and she accepts it and they talk about it. And I'm like, this is why I love this book because there's not the unnecessary drama beyond what it needs to be. Like it happens, a little bit of the drama and they resolve it. And I like that about this book. Anyways, continue.
Yes. No, then that tees up a whole conversation about Castile says, and I know exactly what my father expects of me. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, nor would marrying a woman suddenly erase the deaths of over half of their people. Anyone who believes that is a fool. And Alistair's like, I didn't say I agreed with it. And Emil's like, perhaps this conversation should occur at another time. And an Atlantean spoke up and said, "You mean when we don't have one of them sitting right there, who was raised in the
Mm-hmm.
pit of vipers and is most likely just as poisonous as the nest she grew up when we are this close to finally seeking retribution against them?" And Castillo opened his mouth, but Poppy came in and said, "I was their maiden, and even though I suspected the Ascended were hiding things, I fully admit to not opening my eyes to who they truly were until I met Castillo, but I was never one of them. And the next time you want to call me a poisonous viper, at least have the courage to do so while looking me straight in the eye." Mm,
You go, girl.
pop off, girlfriend. Oh, yeah, you were their maiden, the chosen, the queen's favorite. Isn't that what they say? And Emil's like, Dante, no one asked for your opinion. Um, and Poppy continues and says, "But I'm glad he gave it since I'm well aware that he is not the only one thinking this. Yes, I was the queen's favorite, and I was raised in a cage so pretty that it took a very long time for me to see it for what it was. The Ascended planned to use my blood to make more vampires. That was why I was their maiden. Would you feel loyalty to your captors? Because I do not." And then Dante's like, "If that's the truth, I salute you. We all salute you, and I mean that seriously. It's truly few and far between these days that anyone from Solace has had their eyes open. No offense to those who are present." Yeah, and then it's like, are a better use to you dead. Like, I'm tired of Dante. He's annoying. And she goes, "I know many of you would prefer to send me back in pieces, as does the king, I'm sure. Part of me can't blame you for wanting that, especially after learning the truth." And essentially Castile's like, "I want her. I love her. Y'all can go F yourselves, because this is my queen. Well, my princess, but
Yep.
whatever. Soon. Soon.
She is the reason I came home.
Honestly,
Yeah.
people should be thankful. People should be thankful. Yeah,
And
I took her
then,
and I kept her, but not to use her.
yeah.
Somewhere along the way, I no longer saw her as a bargaining chip or a tool for revenge. I saw her for who she was, who she is, this beautiful, strong, intelligent, endlessly curious, and kind woman who was as much a victim of the Ascended as any Atlanteans. I fell in love with her probably long before I even realized I had. My plans changed, what I believed about Malik changed, and this was before I learned what she was, that she is part Atlantean. She is the reason I came home.
And she looks at Kieran and he basically like confirms it. And then it kind of turns on him like, and you knew he originally planned to use you. And she basically says, yeah, I did at first, not until after he'd already gained my trust. And that of the ascendant in charge of me, when I found out, he admits like she stabbed me in the heart, and everyone's kind of like, oh, really? What? And Kieran's like, yeah, she thought we'd kill him. Like I was like, she's like, I was a little angry. He's like, a little. She's like, okay, I was very angry. And Alistair's like, I didn't know that. And apparently Castiel's father likes women with sharp objects too, according to Jasper.
I love
Um,
that for them.
and then yeah, but she continues on being like, I trusted him and he portrayed that. I was the maiden, groomed my entire life to remain pure and focused on my ascension. I was chosen to be given to the gods, whatever that means, even though I never chose the life. And I don't know what you know of me, but I have no control over. And then she gets really deep. Like, I had no control over where I went, who I spoke to, or could speak with. I was veiled, unable to even look someone in the eye if they were allowed to speak with me. I didn't get to choose what I ate, when I left my chambers, or who was allowed to even touch me. But he was the first thing I'd ever truly chosen for myself. I chose him when I knew him as Hawk. I didn't know what that would mean at the time, other than I wanted to have something that I actually wanted for myself. I'd already begun to question things, the Ascended, and if I could even do what they required of me. I'd already begun to realize that I couldn't live like this any longer, that the maiden wasn't me and I was better and stronger and meant for something other than that. But he was the catalyst, and I chose him because he made me feel like I was something other than the maiden. He saw me when no one else ever really did. He made me feel alive. He valued me for who I am and didn't try to control me. And when it all seemed like a lie, once I realized the truth of who he was and why he was a part of, and then it all seemed like a lie when she realized who he was. And she's like, yeah, I was angry. I felt betrayed. But after learning the entire truth about everything, I started to understand. Doesn't mean I accept his actions, but I could understand why he did it. I refused his proposal, just so you know, because it felt like a betrayal to those who were lost in the fight for all this. and it was a betrayal to myself, but I chose him despite it all. And
Ugh,
she's, yeah. And we
it's
moved past
intense.
that. Yeah, it gets
And
really
then she
intense.
feels, yeah, then she feels like all their hatred despite this whole last conversation that
Oh, that
she,
part pissed me off,
I
but
was
I
just
guess
like,
it's
she just poured
realistic.
her heart into you and y'all are just like, fuck off.
Hmm.
So then she steps outside to get some air. Castillo chases after, well, quote unquote, meets her out there. Delano and Emil are like, deuces, please no stabbing. All
Nail.
of that makes me anxious. No. Nail? Oh, Nail and
Yeah.
Delano. And Delano pushes off the wall to leave. He's like, the air's getting, or Nail's like, the air's getting thick in here. Delano's like, please no stabbing. All of that makes me anxious. And I'm like, mood. Castillo's so funny. He goes, Jasper was right. I do take after my father when it comes to women with sharp objects.
uh,
Oh my God. Yeah, Kieran interrupts and Jasper wants to talk to Castillo. So then
Kieran takes
Kieran
her back to
takes
the
her back
room.
to her room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just enjoy then she gets some background about Jasper from Kieran and
He's gonna
he
be a big
she
brother again.
he's gonna be a big brother and she's shocked because well, old
Yeah.
age gaps. Kieran's like, "Are you sure that's the question you want to ask me about?" And she's like, "It was, but then it wasn't." And then he hesitated and he's like, "Good night." Promise to another, and she just replays it over and over in
This is
her
where she
head,
finally like had enough and kind of had her meltdown.
which
Well,
I
I
don't blame
what
her.
really caused the meltdown is she's like pacing and like trying to calm down, and then she realizes she hasn't like checked the doors in a while to see if like they're locked. And she says, when I realized that no one had locked the door behind me earlier today, or even the first night Castile and I arrived, my arms began to shake. I wasn't caged anymore, a willing captive. I just hadn't noticed that none of the doors had been locked from the outside. And you put, realizing that did something to me. It unlocked the rawest emotions inside me and it hit me hard. Sinking to the floor, I clasped my hands over my face as tears poured from me. The doors were unlocked.
I know. There's some like this is what we were alluding to earlier. Like there's this level of freedom that she finally feels knowing that like
Mm-hmm.
she isn't trapped there. Like this is real. She is free to go. Like no one's tying her here.
Yep.
And then she comes to the realization and she's like, I loved him. I was in love with him, even though the love had been built on a foundation of lies. I loved him, even though there was so much I didn't know about him. I loved him, even though I knew I was a willing pawn to him.
Yep.
And this didn't happen overnight. It shouldn't come as a shock because I was already in love with him the moment my heart broke when I learned the truth of who he was. I fell in love with him when he was Hawk, and I kept falling once I learned that he was Castile, and I knew it wasn't because he was my first everything. I knew it wasn't my na naivety. My brain can't pronounce words or lack
Mhm.
of experience. It was because he made me feel seen and he made me feel alive, even when I genuinely wanted to cause physical harm to him. I'm sorry, it always goes back to the physical harm. And I just, as she even says, that realization was terrifying. And
Yeah.
like, mood, girlfriend. You just realize you are in love with this man who has betrayed you and lied to you, and you don't know how to act. And I don't blame her.
No, not one
Um,
bit.
and then she slowly fell asleep and the chapter ends and she like feels the bed shift and she slips her dagger out from under her pillow and Castile's in the room and he goes, "Are you gonna stab me in the heart again?"
Oh. Oh, and
What
I
is that?
love how he's like, "Oh, I bleed all over the bed." And she's like, "You could always clean up after yourself." And he's like, "There's something innately wrong with the idea of being stabbed and then having to clean up my own blood."
Yeah. So then they're having this whole conversation and
Oh,
they're
they
getting
get
really
real
into
deep.
it.
Yeah. Like
Obviously,
this is
y'all
where
just
everything kind of spews out because like she's getting mad about him being with another supposed to be married to another woman, and he's like she's feeling betrayed and he's like, while you and I did what? Like, what are we even doing? Like,
yeah,
and
he's
he,
like,
and
did you even mean what you said?" Essentially, he's
yeah,
trying to figure out where she stands with them. And they're really getting into it. And of course, Emil interrupts, and Castile's just like, "Bro, this better be like an emergency because it's not a good time." And Emil's like, "The sky is on fire.
yeah. Cause he was finally about to like get into
Lay it
like
all out."
Shay and everything. And then there's a knock at the door, and he's like, if you value your life, you'll walk away and pretend you were never here. And he's like, I wish I could, but the sky's on fire. So that kind of is important.
And this goes to show again the communication. Like this is like I realize this is a fantasy book, but like this still has relatability in more ways than one. So
There's a reason why this is our favorite series. Like,
correct.
you get,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
then
So the
we, you know,
sky's
we
on
love Jasper.
fire. Yeah, we love Jasper.
We love
They
Jasper.
send Delano and Dante out
Correct.
to figure out what's going on.
And then Jasper tells Poppy that he doesn't think that she's descended from the empath bloodline
Mm-hmm.
because
Which
they
is a
didn't
big
feel
shock.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just says you're a mystery in many ways. Very interesting, but I trust Jasper more than I would trust most people
Yeah. He
in
he oh,
terms
he
of
right
figuring it
away
out.
had that like that sense of trust. Like he's one of those people that you meet and you just feel comfortable around.
Correct. And also in this chapter, Cass finally talks to Poppy about the whole being betrothed to another kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh
Poppy
yeah.
goes, I don't understand how the speaker for the Wolven doesn't expect you to marry a Wolven, aka Jasper, but some of your people do. Other Wolven did, and apparently your father, and I guess even Alistair at one point. And Cass goes, well, Alistair did expect it. I know that for sure. I'm almost confident it was his idea. After all, Gianna is his great niece, Beckett's older cousin. And Poppy's like, excuse me? What you
And then
talking about?
again, before they can get into that, Delano returns. But just Delano.
Yeah, he went with Dante, right?
Mm-hmm. They're
It sets
rushing
up
out to meet Delano because they can tell he's hurt. And Jasper's like, why am I not surprised that both the prince and soon to be princess are outside the walls of safety? And Kieran's like, welcome to my world.
honestly though. She heals him. Yeah. She heals
Yep.
Delano because he's wounded. And
Glowing again.
Delano says that the Ascended are coming.
Yep.
Let me tell you, we're on chapter 35, y'all, and there's only 44 chapters in this book. But we're almost done. And you know what happens to the rest of this book?
Chaos.
Chaos.
Pure
Exactly.
chaos.
Chaos. I love that for us. So the Ascended are coming. So now essentially everybody's getting prepped, ready to go. And they're trying to essentially they want Poppy to leave with Kieran and
Yeah.
Alistair.
Oh, this is a big moment too.
And Poppy's like, oh no, Nova says, my prince, I know you feel that it is your duty to remain here, but it is you who should travel beyond the Skotos. You should leave immediately for safety. And Cass replies, if I'm not willing to risk my life for Spessa's end, how dare I ask the people here to do so? That is not what a prince does, at least not a good one.
I love him for that.
Snaps. Snaps,
He's already
boyfriend,
told Kieran
snaps.
that Kieran has to go. Kieran's not happy.
And then he tries to get Poppy to leave with them. And
Uh-huh.
Poppy's like, excuse me, wait, what? And Cass is like, you will leave with them. There will be no breaks, and you will need to listen to everything Kieran tells you, especially when it's night in the mountains. But, and she goes, I'm not leaving. And she said, let me make one thing clear. I don't know if you realize this or not, Castile, but I'm not duty bound to obey a single thing you say. And maybe you should actually look at me when you try to order me to do things. And he goes, I'm looking at you now. And she goes, but are you listening? And Delon was like, oh man, someone is getting stabbed.
And he says, oh, I'm listening. Maybe you should try that along with the thing called common sense. And
goes,
Kieran goes, definitely getting stabbed. I love this part where she says, no one wants to hear about how many times I've made you bleed. And Jasper goes, I do. And Mill's like, so do I.
look, not only is it not wise for the one thing they want to be within their grasp, I don't want to worry about you handing yourself over like before. And she said, that is not a mistake I will make again. And he said, but you were just thinking about it, weren't you? And she said, I was for a couple of minutes, but you were right. And he said, blessed be the gods. Someone marked the date and time. She just admitted I was right.
Yep. And then they continue on trying to figure out. And then the guard jumps in, the guardian, and she's like, oh, you should leave. You'll be a liability. And she's
Oh,
like, excuse me? And she's like,
she
oh, no, I
actually
mean,
says,
no
excuse me.
offense. And she's like, your facts, homegirl, get them right. Just to point out the most obvious of your inaccuracies, what I did for Delano would actually come in handy when and if people are injured. That, she looks at Castile, is common sense. And then she says, as far as me being a liability, I'm just as good with a sword as I am with a bow, and I'm damn good with a bow. Probably better than most here. I'm an asset. And as far as being a distraction to Castile, that's his
Not my
weakness,
problem.
not mine. I love that. Oh, love that.
Oh yeah, so then Kieran is still being sent away because on orders from Cass, and
Yep.
Kieran before he leaves goes, "Do me a favor and protect your prince, Poppy." And he calls her
Yep.
Poppy for the first
Yep.
time. And I'm just like, "Kieran, I love
Protect
you."
your prince, Poppy. And it's like, oh, and even in the book, where is that? Even in the book, it like italicizes him calling her Poppy. And it's like, oh, that's such an important moment in their relationship. Because just before that, he was like, if Penelope is staying, and then they're like, no, no, no. And then he was like, you know what? We've hit that stage. I'm calling her Poppy. Like, I know where he basically knows where she's at, even if she hasn't like said it out loud. He knows where Poppy's at. He knows where Castile's at. He knows that this is gonna end the way it is. Like, we love him.
Yes, and then Cass and Poppy have a moment where everything gets hashed out and
They
the chapter
finally finished their
ends.
conversation.
And Poppy goes, "I was telling the truth at dinner last night about how she felt about him." And so the next
Yes.
chapter goes into, "It was the truth when I said you were the first thing I'd ever truly chosen for myself. It's also true that I chose you when you were just Hawk, and it's not just because you were the first person to ever really see me." And she goes on to the whole "I choose you," and then she ends it with, "I felt for you when you were Hawk, and I kept falling for you when you became Castile." And she said, "I couldn't understand how I kept falling for you. I was so angry with you, with myself for not seeing the truth, and it felt like a betrayal to Victor and Rylan, the others, and myself." And he said, "And you still feel that way, like it's a betrayal? If so, I understand some things can't." And she cuts him off and says, "Some things can't be forgotten or forgiven. But I think I realized or have come to accept that even then, some things can't be changed or stopped. They still matter, but don't. That's those emotions are powerful, but not as strong as others. That what I felt for you had nothing to do with what you did or didn't do. It had nothing to do with Victor or anyone else. And acknowledging that felt like permission to feel, and that scared me."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then she goes on this whole long thing. And essentially, they're scared, but they're all like, "This whole thing is bigger than us. This is, not just for your people, but for the people of Solace." And I've highlighted a lot in this
You
chapter.
did, but I love what's coming up, man. Oh,
And Castillo goes, "Your heart, Poppy, it is a gift I do not deserve, but it is one I will protect until my dying breath. I don't know what that means. I'm in awe of everything you say or do, everything you are. It's why you're the first thing I think about when I wake and the last thing I have when I fall asleep,
the
replacing
last thought I
everything
have. Yeah.
else." Oh, well, that word's cut off. It's why when I'm with you, I can be quiet. I can just be. You know what that means.
Yeah. Oh,
It was love. Your heart was always safe with me. It always will be.
mm-hmm.
There's nothing I will protect more fiercely or with more devotion. Poppy, trust in that, in what you feel from me, in me. Ah, and he goes, she goes, "I don't want to pretend anymore." And he goes, "Neither do I."
Well, I
And
love like
finally,
during all of that though, like she gets a new like she can sense emotions and she gets one that she hasn't felt in a long time, like since like her parents and Rylan and Victor. And it's like
love.
strawberries and chocolate. And she's like, it's one of the many things forbidden to me as the maiden. It was love. And that's when he basically proposes to her again. Oh no, he says, let's make a deal that because she's like, what about everything going on, like my lifespan, things like that. And he's like, let's make a deal that you don't borrow tomorrow's problems today. And I'm just like, oh yes. And then he proposes to her again and basically says, will you marry me today? And she says, yes, I'll give you the honor of becoming my husband. I like it so I'd be honored. I'll give you the honor of becoming my husband because you're already worthy of me. Oh, I love that.
Yes, and then they get married and have the lovely un
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
unification of their marriage, something
Well,
like
we
that.
got to talk about the marriage though, because there's this whole ceremony
Oh
that they're
yeah,
doing. That's, she doesn't understand it. First off, he's turned on by the fact that she has the dagger strapped to her thigh.
shocker.
Right.
Beautiful dress from Netta, by the way.
Yes, Netta helps her get ready. They have a whole bonding moment. Um, Jasper tells Penelope that she looks lovely, and Castiel's like, "What about me?" And they're like, "Ah, you look passable." And he's like, "That was rude."
Yep.
um,
And then they do the whole ceremony and the day turned to night.
yeah. It's done. You are husband and wife, and the day turned to night. And they said, this is an omen, a powerful one, a good one. So it's not a bad omen. It's a good one from the King of Gods. Nyctos, even asleep, approves of this union.
Yes. And then also within the chapter, Poppy tells Cass that Kieran said that he thought that they were heartmates, and they have this whole conversation about Nyktos and the history of all of that,
Mm-hmm.
which love that for us. Then the
Some
chapter proceeds. And then the chapter proceeds and says some stuff that
they
I
talk about
don't.
the blood sharing that is common, and it's
And then sex. Anyway, moving on to chapter
sex. Very
38.
very hot stuff. Anyways.
Yeah, then we go into chapter 38 where Niall calls Poppy Your Highness, and she's just like, what?
And
What,
then she
dude?
remembers she's gonna be queen, and that's a whole new thing. And then Emil gets on Castile's hit
Bad
list.
list. And
Yep.
she's all, and Poppy's like, why? What's going on? And he's like, I don't like the way he looks at you. And she's like, how does he look at me? And he's like he wants to eat you. Well,
Well,
essentially,
because yeah, she's
he
like,
says,
he's like, how does he look at me? And he's like, he looks at you like you do. And she's like, and he's like, how do I? She's like, that's not true. You look at me. And he's
like,
like,
you want
how
to
do I
eat
look at
you.
you? Yeah, like you
Mm-hmm.
want to eat me. He's like, exactly.
Mm. That is so
Poor
funny.
Emil.
Yes. Oh, and
And
then
then
the
Jacinda
send it
arrives.
alive. Yeah, Duchess Harriman. Stupid, stupid bitch.
Jacinda.
Anyway, so then she's all trying to bargain for Poppy, and Poppy's all like, I hate you, bitch. Stab.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Well, okay. So this
she
one is
says the
interesting.
thing. Yeah.
Well, this one
Gives you
is
some
interesting
context.
because they're fighting, and it seems like they're not going to make it. Like they're surrounded, and Castile gets to this point where he's like, "We got to get you out of here," and they start to fight. Oh, before the fight, the heads, like
Yeah, fuck that.
Eliza, Magda,
I don't
all
want to
them.
talk about
Mm.
that. I don't want to talk about it.
Anyways,
The gift. It was the gift,
the
quote
gift.
unquote.
Poppy's like, I got it. Like she's overrun with emotions. Like she can feel the emotions of the people they're fighting that are human, the emotions of everyone around there. And finally she just stands up and like puts the knife to her own throat and is like, I'll do it. And Castile's like, I'm about to take you down. Like, what are you doing? And then the Wolven arrive and they get into this. And like Kieran nudged my hand again and I opened it, revealing the golden mark and the ring on my finger. And she says, yeah, you missed it. And he goes over to Castile while Poppy makes her way to the carriage because they were fighting their way to that carriage. And I love how like she finds the Duchess and she's like, Penelope. And she says, I punched her in the face.
Love
And I'm
her.
like, damn straight. Um,
And then the Duchess tries to spit some mad truths about the Queen and blah 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 blah. And
yeah.
the Duchess goes, you have no idea what Queen Elena is, and neither does the false prince standing beside you. And you're wrong, Penelope. You belong to the Queen just like the first maiden did. And then they go into this whole the first maiden situation. And the Duchess goes, who said that Queen Elena is an ascended?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're all trying to feed through all the bullshit. The
And then she
Duchess
sees,
claims that the Queen is her grandmother.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
a lot of things that like you're sitting there as a reader, you're sitting there like, what of this is truth? What of this is lie? Is it all lies? Is it all truth? Like, what's going on? And then she finds her in the carriage and she says, you're married. She sees like the marriage mark and she's like, you're married. And then she starts laughing and she's like, none of this would have been necessary if I'd known you, born of flesh and fire, have accomplished, like, the queen will be excited to learn that you accomplished what she couldn't. And she was like, the F? And she's like, our queen will be so proud of you. And Poppy's like, I'm done with you, stabs her, kills her. And then
Then they have
Castile.
sex on top of her.
Yep. Yep. They stuck it to her by sticking it over her.
Oh
Anyways.
my God. Oh, and then we move into the next chapter where there's another kind of telepathic situation where Kieran told me that he heard you calling him. He said the other Wolven felt it too, that they all veered in our direction. Jasper confirmed it. He said the same thing.
Yeah. And that the only reason
So
they were able to get there as fast as they could because the mist seemed to like
let them go.
let them go through. Yeah. Like it doesn't usually do. So that was another moment of like what's going on? Like,
Yes, and then we
oh,
move on, and they're on their journey now to Skotos, right? That's
yep.
where they're going, Skotos.
Yeah, through
And
the
so
SCOTUS
Hobby's
Mountains.
Poppy's asking 10,000 billion questions, and then they camp for the night, and she sees that there are 3 blankets side by side and overlapping. And she goes, "Are we sleeping here, the three of us?" And Kieran was like, "I was wondering when she was going to notice that." And
Yep.
she goes, "Is it really necessary that the three of us sleep so close?" I
He's
love
like,
her
well, do you want to
innocence.
freeze to death? Like, and then she's playing with the mist before sleeping. Like, the mist just seems like to be playing back with her, and they're all like, you're imagining things, go to sleep. It doesn't do that. She's Elsa, it's fine. And then she goes to sleep, and she wakes up and she says, I turned to Castile in my sleep. He was on his back, and I had all but climbed halfway on top of him. My head lay in the crook of his shoulder and chest. One of my legs tossed over his, and the entire front of my body was fused to his side. One of his hands was curled around my shoulder, but that wasn't the only explanation for why I was so warm. Heat pressed against my back, a heavy arm lay over my waist, and a leg was tucked between mine. If I had turned to Castile in my sleep, Kieran had also turned, as if Castile were a magnet that drew both of us.
Wild.
And then she
Uh,
mentally throat punched herself for thinking other thoughts about that situation.
yes, and then she heard her name, and we move into the last 2 chapters of the book. In one of the chapters, Poppy almost yeets herself off of a cliff, but Ios, or who we think is Ios, tells her to go home, take what is yours, you will find what you seek there, the truth, go home. And then she wakes up from this whole thing and she's about to,
Walk
literally
off a
fall off
cliff.
of a cliff.
Yep.
Then they feel
The earth
the
shake.
ground, the earth shake, and Castile goes, "Who did you say you saw? Who stopped you?" And Poppy goes, "I don't know who it was, but it was a woman. Why?" And Kieran goes, "Because that was a god returning to their place of rest."
And then they return, and then they enter into Atlantia, and she feels like like she gets like these goose pimples, and like there's vibrating, like she feels like there's something about returning to this place she's never been. And he says, welcome home, princess.
Yes.
And then we go
And
into the last chapter.
the last chapter, and then they go to Atlantia, and Cass has to go do something, and Beckett offers to take Poppy to the Chamber of Nyktos or something.
Yeah,
Offers to take Poppy somewhere else.
because Castile learns that
And
his parents are there, and so he has
yes,
to go talk to them. And so he's like,
yes,
oh, I'll show her the chambers. And they go in there, and he's like, wow, this is cool. And then she went to say something to him, and he wasn't there, but there were other people there.
yeah. And essentially, a bunch of fire and brimstone, rocks are being thrown at her. She
Mm-hmm.
gets overwhelmed and overstimulated because that's a mood.
They call her a whore, which doesn't make sense because they know her as the maiden, and it's like, how is
Yeah,
she
I know.
both? But that's a whole other thing.
She gets
It's
pissed.
well, right before she gets pissed, it starts to rain blood.
Rain blood.
They said it was an omen, the tears of a god. They're showing us that they know what must be done and what we will face. And then they're doing the thing. She says, the buzzing in her skin intensified, stronger than what I felt before. And that ancient sense of knowledge rose deep from my palm. The chords I could see so clearly rippled out from me, connecting me to each and every one of them. It gathered all their burning hatred and scorching loathing, their acidic bitterness and thirst for vengeance after years, decades, centuries of pain inflicted upon them. And I took it. I took it all inside me, letting it pour into every vein, every cell, until it choked me, until I tasted the blood, until I drowned in it, until I tasted death, and it was sweet. And then, yeah, she says, enough, I screamed as the
Yeah.
connection to them, all of them crackled with energy.
And of course, decimates everybody, and then her mother-in-law shows.
Well, yeah, because they're like, your eye, well, because they say something about her eyes, and then they say, dear gods, forgive us. And
Yeah, and then
then,
they
yeah,
try to like apologize, and it was too late
she
for
sends
that.
all that energy back into them. And then the Wolven show up, and they're like circling around her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really weird in itself. And then all these people come boarding in, like Castile comes in, but the wolves like start growling at him as he gets too close. Dear Queen and King and Queen show up,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, what have you done? What have you brought back? And Alistair's like, it's not too late. And you're like, wait, what? And she just goes,
And the end of the book.
yes.
Last
Yeah, this
paragraph
is
of
the
this
end of the
book.
book. She's like, yes, it's too late. And then the queen is like, lower your sword, she commanded, her chin lifting even as she lowered to one knee. even as a potent, helpless sort of rage drenched the space around her, one that carried the stench of a long buried fear come to fruition and bow before the last descendant of the most ancient ones, she who carries the blood of the king of the gods within her, bow before your new queen. And then boom, that's it. That's where it stops.
Book 3, anyone?
Yeah,
Oh
like,
my God, this is
oh,
wild. Wild. You meet your, but they haven't
insane.
even been introduced yet, and that is how this book ends.
Yeah. And I'm just
Hold
like,
on.
how can you leave it there? That's just cruel. Like, part of me is really
Cool.
glad I found these books when they're already out.
Yep,
As much as they were, because obviously she's still writing more. But like, because if I had to read that ending and couldn't immediately go into the third one,
I would have cried.
oh, I would have been, ugh, just the emotion thinking about that. I would have been so upset. Oh
Blame you.
man.
But yes,
Yeah.
that was book 3 and all of our glory of explaining it to you. If you made it this far, props. Please let us know what you think.
It was a lot to go through. It was a lot to go through, guys.
It was, but we made it through the
Worth it.
wilderness, and we hope you liked this book. We'll keep reading books because they're
Mm-hmm.
great.
2 weeks,
Two
book
weeks,
3.
A
It
Crown of
will,
Gilded Bones.
yep. We'll hop into what happens next, what we figure out. She
Because
meets
it
the
jumps
king and
right back in.
queen. But yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It
that's a
goes.
nice spoiler if you're reading. It starts like the second one did, right where it left off.
Yep. Every single book. We love
Chaos
Jennifer
at the
and all
end,
of her work.
chaos at the beginning.
Always. Just chaos throughout the whole thing. And now it really picks up even more. You thought that this was the end? No, it never is. Sippin N Bitchin on Instagram. Sippin N Bitchin on TikTok, I think. We're Sippin N Bitchin everywhere, to be honest
Like
with you. I
it's
might
either
be Sippin N
sipping and
Bitchin
bitchin,
pod.
sipping and bitchin pod. Yeah. Just usually you
Some
Google it, you
variation.
get it. Find us, follow us, get to reading
Like and
because
subscribe.
yeah,
5-star review on all the things and check out our
share with your
Patreon.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, share. Hit the share button.
Alani
Um,
sponsor us, like all the things.
yeah, all the things. But yeah, thanks for listening to our whole breakdown of this book. It was wild and I love it. And I hope you love Poppy and Cass as much as we do. And Kieran. Honestly, all the characters.
All of them.
Uh,
It's gonna get better.
for sure. But until then, 2 weeks, get to reading. I promise
We'll
you,
be
y'all
posting the
got it.
funny clips from this
Oh,
moment.
100%.
That's
100%.
great.
And yeah.
We love you
Any
guys.
last words of wisdom? Wisdom? I don't think we have any
Go
wisdom
get
left in.
your daily dose of honeydew.
No. Okay. Go get your daily dose of honeydew, and we'll catch you later, bitches. That's so degrading, but like we'll go with it.
But in the
Anyway,
most loving
bye.
way.
Yeah, we love you.
Okay, bye. Bye.